Okay, we continue with our series on the Rambam Hilchos Chanukah. Like we said, the ground rules is that we're just working with the Rambam in front of us as far as text and diukim. We're allowed to reference what comes up by memory, and it's just working on the strength of diukim and pure reasoning, the way the Rosh taught us how to learn the Rambam in front of you. So we're in Hilchos Chanukah, Perek Gimel, Halacha Vav, right? V'lo halo shel Chanukah bilvad hu shemidivrei sofrim. So halo of Chanukah, that not that alone is midivrei sofrim. Because Olayla midivrei sofrim. B'choyom shegorim sahalo. It's like the Rambam is prophetically coming lafuke the Ramban. The Ramban is from the other extreme. The Ramban he's only willing to admit that the halo of Chanukah is not Doraisa, because the whole Chag is Midrabanan. So how could the halo be Doraisa if the Chag itself is Midrabanan? Right? So Rambam's claim that not only is the halo of Chanukah Midrabanan, the halo is always Midrabanan, even on all those days when you say halo Sholem. And it's 18 days a year. This is in Eretz Yisrael. We only keep one day Yom Tov, right? 18 days a year. If you're on an Eretz Yisrael scam, there's no calendar and there's no Yom Tov Sheni. So mitzvah goes halo, and it's a mitzvah be midrabanan to finish halo on that. And again, this not even because there's the Rambam L'shita, so that even a takonos hanavim has a din of divrei sofrim, the same like any drabanan. All right, so even if you want to go back to that was originally takonos hanavim, that according to the Rambam doesn't make a difference. Right, and these are the Shmona Yemei Achag, right, the 8 days of Sukkot, which includes Shmini Atzeres. Shmona Yemei Chanukah, and the 8 days of Chanukah. Rishon Shel Pesach, the first day of Pesach, because the rest of Pesach you don't say Halo Sholem. You only say Chatzi Halo. What we call Chatzi Halo, right? Halo B'diluk. B'yom Atzeres and Shvuos. Av Rosh Hashanah B'yom Halo, Fi Shem Yemei Tshuva, Yerav Afacha, Yemei Simcha Yisera. So Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we don't have Halo because they're not Yemei Simcha, but rather Yemei Tshuva, Yerav Afachat, Lo Yemei Simcha Yisera, not days of added Simcha, right? Not days of added Simcha, right? So there's a diak over here. He doesn't say Lo Yemei Simcha, period, but Lo Yemei Simcha Yisera because they are Yom Tov. And so you have a chiyuv on Rosh Hashanah of Einig Yom Tov, right? You have a chiyuv of Einig Yom Tov on Simchas Yom Tov on Rosh Hashanah, no different the Chag, but it's just not Simcha Yisera. We're not overly joyous because as the Gemara says, Sefer Chaim Sefer Mesim Psuchim Lefanav, the books of the living and dead, your year hands in balance, right? Right now, Yom Kippur also, it doesn't have not Simcha Yisera, but the reason is, as you see, he says things. It's Yemei Tshuva Yerav Afachat. I guess it goes on both, because the Rambam in the Moreh Nevuchim says Rosh Hashanah is the Hatchala. Right, and the shofar is also hatzal. Will probably show Ram, going with what he writes in the Yad Chazal. He references that in the Moreh Nevuchim. It's a call to do tshuva. So all of them are days of tshuva. You're in facha because your year hangs in the balance. But lo simcha yemei simcha yesera, but they are yemei simcha, just not simcha yesera. So of course, on Rosh Hashanah is the Eimas Hadin. On Yom Kippur there's an element of Eimas Hadin also because it's the chasima. Right, if you didn't pass your score on, but it's also you made tshuva, and tshuva is not tshuva and simcha just don't, it's not the same emotion. So so even if year and facher is be'ikar on Rosh Hashanah, which is the ikar hadin, but they're all you made tshuva, because you have to do tshuva on Yom Kippur, right? Even if you're tzad, even if you got your good din, you got a good din. On Rosh Hashanah, you still have to do Yom Kippur. Tshuva on Yom Kippur, you're not potter from doing tshuva. As Ram writes, it's Zman tshuva lakol ben v'yochid ben latzibur. So even if you're confident you did well in Rosh Hashanah, it's still a day of tshuva, because as the Rambam writes somewhere else, The very fact that a person thinks he's a tzaddik doesn't have to do tshuva. For that alone, he has to do tshuva. For just being such a baal gaiva and being overconfident. But the point I want to make is lo simchi mei simchi yisera, because already the Mishnah says in Tanis that lo yom tov yisrael kamo chamish asrav and yom kippurim. So they are days of Yom Kippur is a day of simcha. It's one of the happiest days of the year, right? Next to Tu B'Av and Yom Kippur. Right, so it's just lo simcha yemei simcha yesera. It could have been, it was happy in the heart, But of course, there's no eating, there's no drinking. So that's where the simcha, there's the tshuva also requires seriousness. So I think this is correct. Yemei simcha yesera davka. Not they are yemei simcha, just not simcha yesera. Rosh Hashanah is a Yom Tov, which is chayiv in Simchas Yom Tov, basar v'yayin. Just the same. Aside from the pasuk in Nehemiah that you chedus Hashem u'schem dafka to eat. Besides that, it's Yom Tov, and Yom Kippur that doesn't have achila and shtia. It's still a day of simcha, as per that Mishnah in Tanis, because of slicho mechila, right? But slicho mechila is accompanied with tshuva, and you're still also to eat. So I think the diuk is 100% correct. They are Yemei Simcha, just not Yemei Simcha Yesera, right? Because there are limits on the Simcha. But here's the main point I want to discuss today. Lo tiknal b'Purim shekriyas Megillah hi ha'halel. They did not institute Hallel on Purim because the kriyas Megillah is the Hallel. Kriyas Megillah hi ha'halel. Right. So first of all, there is something niflali's boinain on this. Right, something amazing to look into on this is the Rambam Paskins like Reb Nachman, the Gemara in Megillah, as I recall. I think it's on Daf Yud, I do believe. Right, so the Gemara says that keeping Mikra Megillah is not called the Hosafa al Masha Kosuv Batara because there's a precedent. What's the precedent? Yitzias Mitzrayim. Mam Avdus Samriyan Shila Mimisa Chaim Lokoshkein. Right. So listen, from Avdus Sacheres, we have to be grateful and we thank God. From on Purim was more. It wasn't Avdus Sacheres. It was Mimisa Chaim Lokoshkein. So Gemara says Halo Nami Likri. So if so, let's say Halo. We say Halo in Pesach, Kavachal Ram Purim. So says the Gemara 3 terutzim. Right. Teretz number 1 is that once Am Yisrael came into Eretz Yisrael, you don't say Halo on a Nes Shebachutz La'aretz. Right. That's teretz number 1. So Gemara says maybe once we're in Golus, like in days of Purim, so now Chazu Lech Sharon, you could say Halo on the Nes and Chutz La'aretz. Only if Am Yisrael is in Eretz Yisrael. Am Yisrael is in Eretz Yisrael. So Nes happens in Chutz La'aretz, you don't say Halo. Right? But if we go into Golus, Chazu Lech Sharon, so it's a machlokas over there. But one teretz is you don't say ever since we came into Eretz Yisrael the first time around. Ever since then, you don't say Halo on an Eshe b'chutz la'aretz. But if you want to say that maybe Chazu Lech Sharon, so there's a teretz of Rabbi Nachman Kriyasa Zuhei Leila, right? And but Rava, I think, is the final mandon, says that there's another problem, more fundamental problem. Right, that you have to be domeli tziyasayim halu avdei Hashem. That's the first person. Halu avdei Hashem lo avdei Paro and akati avdei Rachshon Anan. We are still the avodim of Achashverosh. Right now, first of all, it sounds like that's the final day on the Gemara, and according to that day is different than the first 2. Right, on the first 2, you're getting off on a technicality. Right. That you really should say Halo, what can you do? It happened in Chutz La'aretz, okay? So you're missing that ingredient. But mitzad the nes, you should have said Halo, but it's a technicality. It's possible because it happened in Chutz La'aretz. But mitzad the goda hanes, right? Rav Nachman says no, if mamish it's chayvin Halo mamish, but you're yaitza with the Megillah. Okay, right? Rava says, no, it's Purim is possible. Not possible. The nace is possible for Amiras Halo because for Amiras Halo you need political freedom. So even though it's a big nace, we were saved, be misachayim, but it has to be avdei Hashem v'avdei paro, nakati avdei Hashem, that the nace is not even kosher. It's not a big enough nace, not a big enough nace for Halo. So so let's say let's compare it to Chanukah that we're in right now. We were avdei Hashem and not avdei Antiochos, right? It was we attained political freedom, called. We were not meshubed to the Umasola, right? So Rav is saying, you need that you'll be free from the shibud of Umasola, if that's what you need to be free from the shibud of Ozam. So the nace of Purim just doesn't qualify because akati avei Chashvesh. That's what's so brought out by the last parak of the Megillah. So a lot of Farshim say, just to teach you, life went back to normal, normal, for lack of better. It's not normal to be under Shibud Malchus. And they taxed us, and we weren't free. There's a lot of Musar Vertlach that they learned from it also. Things just went back to same old. But it's really accentuated by the last parak. I'd say Akati Arashan, that so Achashverosh taxed us to death, right? Okay, so now I do believe, check me on this, that most Rishonim say, look, Rav is the last day in the Gemara, right? Rav is the final day, and seemingly that ought to be the halacha. Seemingly. That ought to be the halacha, that the pshat is, there's no chiyuv halo on Purim in any way, shape, or form, because the nace doesn't make the criterion, the nace doesn't make the grade, because you need political freedom. You have to be potter from shibud lagoyim. Can't have shibud malchus, right? So as it were, the nace, for lack of words, doesn't make the grade. It's not good enough for halo, because halo needs a hatzola that at the end of it, you're also not meshubed to the Umasola. Okay? And I think there's a few, if I check me on this, we say this is a learning a Rambam cold forum, the way Rosh Yeshiva taught us, and just how to learn the Rambam in front of you without any other svarim. But check me on this, I think the Rosh brings down Rava, right? So there's no chiyuv halo be'etzem at all. And by the way, that's also true according to the first teretz in the Gemara, that even if the nace is a big enough nace that should warrant halo, but afal pikein, since it happened in Chutz La'aretz, no din halo, because it happened in Chutz La'aretz. Okay, so the only eretz shows kosher l'shira. Okay, right. Everyone's wondering. There's one thing, why the Rambam paskin Rav Nachman. So now Rav Nachman is taka, categorically different than the first teretz and the third teretz. There is a chiyuv hal. There's a chiyuv hal, even though it wasn't Chutz La'aretz, and even though akati avdei dachashver shanan. Just the biggest pell is the third teretz. That the nace is not ra'ui for halo because we're still akati avdei dachashver shanan. As opposed to the first one that says it could be royal halo. Problems happen in Chutz La'aretz. It's a big enough nace for halo, but it's happened in Chutz La'aretz, right? But actually, the common denominator between the first and the third is that there's no chiyuv halo bichlal, right? Rav Nachman at the Rambam is paskening, right? Seemingly he's bringing from Rav Nachman that Chvrusah he hahalo, Kriyas HaMegillah he hahalo, right? He's paskening Kriyas zu halela. He's take it very literally, means that Purim is be'etzem chayiv and halo, right? Right? It's be'etzem chayiv and halo, but you're yaitza with the Megillah. Okay, so here becomes the question, right? And this happens in Yerushalayim every year, as often as they have Purim Meshulash over there, right? There are these minyanim where they say, for our audience that may not know, according to our calendar, the way it's set up, our luach, our preset calendar, Purim, the Prozim, with Yudal, which is what most of the world keeps, can never come out on Shabbos. It just doesn't. It does not. Sometimes it comes out on Friday. Sometimes it comes out on Sunday. Never comes out on Shabbos. Okay? Right? The only time, according to our calendar, that we are, living by, the luach, right, of Hillel Nesiah. The only Purim, the Mukafim, the Shushan Purim, which is what Yerushalayim keeps as an example, right? That could come out on Shabbos. So then, what we do based on the Yerushalmi is the Purim Meshulash. All right, okay, so we know we don't read Megillah on Shabbos because Shema Yavro Dadam Chvrusah Rabim. Right, so we read. So we in Yerushalayim, I've been at least through three Purim Meshulash. Right, 3 Purim Meshulash in Yerushalayim. I was zocher to be. There was just one Purim Meshulash when I lived in Beit Shemesh, so I missed that. But I had at least 3, maybe even 4 Purim Meshulash in Yerushalayim. So went through this. So we don't read Megillah on Shabbos. Shemi Avel Daras Chvrusah Rabim. And so the Gemara in Megillah proves you got to read it earlier, not later. Right? It's really clear from the Mishnah. Okay, so we read the Megillah on Friday, Erev Shabbos. On Shabbos itself, we say Ala Nisim because that's the day of Purim. That's the Purim de Mukafim, Tesvav. And on Sunday, is when we do the Seudah. And that part is based on the Yerushalmi. From the Bavli, you would think you should do the Seudah, on Shabbos also. That's what you would think. It's Yerushalmi that says, that it has to be, it's learned out, that has to be a Yom Chol, Dafka. Question whether it's really a drasha, it's... or it's an asmachta, and it's just Chazal didn't want you doing the Suda on Shabbos because it might lead to Chol Shabbos. I do believe there's a deal in what the real Pshat in Shabbos, but it's a Yerushalmi. The question is whether the drasha Yerushalmi says is ironclad is a special din that it has to be a Yom Chol where it's Bidei Adam and not Bidei Shemaim. I forget the exact nuance of it's something like that, of why the Asiyah has to be a day of Asiyah, when the Asiyah is Bidei Adam. Your Asiyah is not, I remember reading somewhere, again, this is all off the top of my head, remember, that some say that, it was just a smachta, and, Chazal, when they were metaken, Rolach Purim, were really afraid of Chilul Shabbos, if you do the Suda on Shabbos, push off Sunday, and it was all from the Takana of when they were laying down the laws of Purim. But let me show you that the bottom line is, Megillah is on Friday. Ala Nisim in davening and benching is on Shabbos, and Sunday is the Suda. Okay, so every time, there's always a chabura that makes a rash and says, according to the Rambam, we should say Hallel on Shabbos, because that's the day of Purim. That's the day, right? That is the day of Purim. So we should, we should say Hallel. We should say Hallel. And okay, it's just the Rabbanim, never demand it, and rightfully so. As we're going to explain, I think it's a ta'ut gamur. What some people, there's always these underground Hallel minyan without a bracha, obviously without a bracha, because it's because even if the Rambam holds, because the whole thing is to be yotze the Rambam. Now, as Kenton, I vaguely remember, check me on this, that there might be a Miri that Taka says this, that, you should say Hallel on Shabbos, it could be, check me on that, I am not sure, right? It could be there is a Meiri, but let's say, the main concern is to be yotze the Rambam. So Bisham, I believe the Rosh says, Rova, Akati, Avecha, Shver, Shana, there's no Chiyav Hallel whatsoever on Purim, because it's, there was no political freedom, right? But they say, according to the Rambam, let's be yotze the Rambam, let's be machmir, just to be yotze the day of the Rambam, right? So we should say Hallel on Shabbos. That's right. That's what they, there's a group they do, make an underground Hallel without a bracha minyan, right? They don't do it during davening, they do it, for those who, for those who want to yotze the das of the Rambam, because the Rambam passes like Rav Nachman that the Megillah is the Hallel, but on the day of Purim itself, Tesvav, you don't read Megillah, so you should read Hallel instead. Okay, it's nice, but if we're coming to do it out being Yotze the Das of the Rambam, you're not reading the Rambam correctly. Listen to the Lashon Rambam. You see, the whole thing is a ta'ut. I'll tell you where there could be room for, but the dati, listen to the words of the Rambam. Listen very carefully. V'lo tiknu halo b'purim. There is no takonas halo. It's not that there's a takon of halo, but you Yotze the v'lo tiknu halo b'purim. Shekriyas Megillah hi ha halel. Hi ha halel. Read the Rambam. Read it correctly. It's not that there's a chi of halo, right? But you could be Yotze with Megillah, right? You Yotze with Megillah, like all these cases, you have to make your just a big example, a wide example, okay? You gotta say, oh, your Birchos HaShachar, okay? And that's what Chazal want from you. Say Birchos HaShachar every day, right? Now you came late to shul, whatever. So you skip Birchos HaShachar, and you davened, right? So now when you go back, you can't say, Elokai Neshama, because you might have been Yotze with the bracha of Machaya Mesim, right? And you can't say, you can't say, also by the same token, if we're talking about what you're Yotze with Shmona Esrei, you can't say Matir Asurim, right? Because you also mentioned in that bracha, Somech Orofel Matir Asurim, right? You can't be Yotze that bracha, right? You may have been Yotze already with Machaya Mesim, so you can't say the bracha of Matir Asurim because you mentioned it. And you can't say, according to Aruch HaShulchan, I don't think everyone agrees with him on this one. He says you can't say because you made the bracha of Yotzar V'Choshech, also V'Esakol. So it's like Lavchin Ben Yom Ben Laila, right? So like you're really supposed to say these brachas, but you said other brachas that also pater, right? Right? That's not what I'm saying. That even when the Rambam is paskening Rav Nachman, Kriyasa, Zueleli, he's taking it very literally. Lo tiknu halo b'purim, shekriyas Megillah hi halo. Period. Right? There is no halo on Purim. There isn't. And Kriyas Megillah is the halo. Is the halo. Not say it's Motzi de halo. So read the words. V'lo tiknu halo b'purim. There is no. The Chazal or Metakin, they were not mitakein halo on Purim. Shekriyas Megillah hi ha halo. Period. Right. Two things we learn, right, just from reading the Rambam clearly that that these people want to be Yotze the Rambam saying there's no chi of halo whatsoever, right? There is, because Kriyas HaMegillah is the halo. No. So now, lo mi baya, right? It says there's no chi of halo, but the Rambam's also saying, more than that. Kriyas Megillah is the halo, and the Rambam is saying it knowing full well that there's times where we read the Megillah early, right? Right. So now, that's part of the Zmanim Harbe Tiknuim. You might say, ask, but it's not. We don't read it bo bayom. So what? The Purim is spread over a few days. Like the Gemara says, the Kaimish Me'aprimil Bizmanehem, Zmanim Harbe Tiknulahem, and the mitzvahs are spread over a few days. Okay? So now it's not just Megillah that we do early. The halacha that when you're Magdal and Kriskil, that's the day of Matas Lev Yonim also, She'enei Aniyim Nesuas L'Mikra Megillah, right? Because they're expecting, when they hear the Aniyim here that they're reading Megillah, they expect their money. And then Nesuas L'Mikra Megillah, so, it's not just Kriyas Megillah alone. It's also Matas Lev Yonim is on that day, right? So like, we'll get on the day where, Purim came out on Shabbos, right? We split up the mitzvahs, right? Even on the you would think, okay, this is the day itself, so you should be saying halo. This should be making a suda. You don't make the suda on the day either. The suda, which is the Simchas HaChag, is done the day after the Chag, right? It's Chiddush of the Yerushalmi. That became the halacha, I guess, because Yerushalmi handled this shaila. Right, so it's Zmanim Harbe Tikun. Purim is an interesting Chag that it's spread over a few days. That's the big chiddush of Purim. So if Megillah, and so Ram said, whenever you read the Megillah, that's the hallow. The hallow of the Chag of Purim is the Megillah. The Megillah is the hallow, and there is no such thing as saying Halukah Lu Avdei Hashem on Purim. Kriyas Megillah hi hallow, right? And the Rambam says, now the simple mashmos of the Rambam is, if you read the Rambam most literally. So let me bite it, they're wrong. This chabura that they go clandestine, they're pretty open about it. They don't do it b'seis, they're just not machayev it. They don't do it mitten davening. They get together. I understand after the morning, so after Musaf they go home. They have a suda. They come back for hallow, without a bracha. Some chaburas do it, right? If it's to be Yotze the Rambam, it's amaratzos. It's stupid, right? First of all, who says the halachas like the Rambam anyway, right? Right, but now but the whole thing is that the Rambam says there is no hallow on Purim, and Kriyas Megillah hi hallow. So whenever the Megillah is read, it was read on Friday. So that's when the Chi of hallow is also. You would think also the Suda should be Bo Bayom on the day that Yom Asher Nochu Bayom Ayudim. Tesvav Suda is the next day. Also, Matan Sav Yonim is together with the Megillah. The Megillah, whenever it is read, is the hallow for Purim. It is the hallow of Purim. It is the hallow of Purim. Right? So they, these guys, they read the Megillah on Friday. That was the hallow. That was the hallow. That was the hallow. Right? It got me angry every Purim Meshulish that there's put out a little in the Alona Shchuna, announcing that for those who want to be Machmir, like the Rambam, it's not the Pshat in the Rambam. The Rambam saying, first of all, there is no hallow on Purim, and Kriyas Megillah is the hallow, right? So, so whenever you read the Megillah, that is the hallow. That is the hallow. So the case in question that they wanted, that they read the Megillah on Friday, and then they want to say, next day, Buck Amaratzis, like I said, there may be a Meiri like that. There may be. Right, but it's not the das of the Rambam. It's not the das of the Rambam. The Rambam is that there is no hallow on Purim, period, because Kriyas Megillah is the hallow. It's the hallow. So whenever you read the Megillah, that is the din hallow of the Chag. Just like you would think the Simcha of the Chag should be Bo Bayom, right? And it's not. It's the day after. So also the hallow on the Chag is the day before. Right? That's the Chiddush of Purim. That's spread over a few days when it's Chal on Shabbos. Right? It's all called Purim. The one thing to be, okay, what there's a Hakira. I once was Choker when I gave a shir on Chvrusah Rambam, and Machlokas Rambam the other Rishon Magabe a ear that's Suffolk Mukafin, Suffolk not, what to do. So I can't remember. It's been years ago. It's like 8 years ago. I said this year. It's got to reconstruct. There was I had a Hakira whether Purim the Prozim and Purim the Mukafar are two different Purims. Or it's all one Chag of Purim. Just some dinim are for these people on this day, some dinim for people on that day, but it's all one big Chag, right? But actually, right, when for when Purim is the Kforim Hamakdim Yom HaKnisa, or the Krachim that have a Purim Meshulish, it's spread over a few days. Yemei Purim Bizmanehem. That's the chiddush of Bizmanehem. Zmanim Harbe Tiknu Lahem. It's not just it's Mikra Megillah. It's Mikra Megillah and other mitzvahs of Purim, which includes the hallow. The Kriyas Megillah is the hallow. Where it would be a legitimate suffix, would be in the following case: you didn't read the Megillah. There was Chas v'Sholom. This is where it's a legitimate suffix. Like they should read hallow on Shabbos on Purim Meshul. You read the Megillah on Bismano on Erev Shabbos. Tesvav was Shabbos in Yerushalayim. That's what Shabbos. You read the Megillah on Erev Shabbos. That was your Chi of hallow. Kriyas Megillah hi hallow. Right. That is the hallow of the Chag. That is the hallow of the Chag. Kriyas Megillah hu hallow. Hi hallow. Right, here is the question. This is an interesting question, right? There was no Megillah in town. Rahman Hashem Yirachem, there was no kosher Megillah. You had Chumashim. you had chumashim. That's what you had. You had chumashim. There was no single kosher Megillah. So the whole, so it's printed. It's not printed lishma. It's as a bit of kara kula al peh, right? Not mitoch haktav, right? So you had chumashim. Or you didn't even have that. Oh, mazam mishaneh, right? Let's just go with a given that the chumash, a printed chumash, is not kosher. Let's just take that as a given for the purposes of our discussion, right? Right? It's done by a machine without das. Okay. So taking that as a given that a printed chumash is not kosher, or or there was not even that. So there was no Megillah, chas v'sholom, shouldn't be ever a situation like that. So let's say there was no Megillah whatsoever. Should I read Hallel? That's a legitimate question. Because the Megillah is, instead of Hallel, the Rambam, this is all according to the Rambam, of course. If I'm correct, if my memory serves me right, please check me on this. If my memory serves me right, that that according to Rosh, looks like Rava, that there's no chi of Hallel because you need political freedom, and I think that that's the day of Rov Poskin. But we're talking in the Rambam. There's no Megillah whatsoever, right? And I had the suffix today. I was wondering about it. We said, the ground rules are we don't go looking in books. That's cheating. Right, as far as this forum goes, but you're allowed to think, and And here's the thing, eno dome, davar bito matov. When we're sitting in front of the Rambam, learning it with you, that's when I see the Ikra thoughts come out. I was wondering about this today, right? That the, so let's say there's no Megillah, so maybe you should say Hallel because there's no Megillah, right? And if so, when should you say the Hallel, right? Say the Hallel on the day you would have read the Megillah, or say the Hallel on the day, on Tesvav. So let's say it's, let's say it's a Purim Mishush, and there's no Megillah in the whole Yerushalayim. I mean, will never happen, right? We hope not, right? No kosher Megillah in the whole Yerushalayim. So you can't say you were Yates with Kriyas Megillah, right? You can't say you were Yates with Kriyas Megillah. There is no Megillah. Should you say Hallel? And if you say Hallel, when should you say the Hallel? Say the Hallel on Friday, on the day you would have read the Megillah, right? Or say the Hallel on once there's no Megillah anyway. So say the Hallel on Shabbos, just like you're saying Al Nisa on Shabbos. Say the Hallel on Shabbos, right? What should you do, right? You know what I think you should do. As I'm reading this Rambam over here with you, Lo tikno Hallel b'Purim. There is no Hallel. There is no Hallel. Shekriyas Megillah hiya Hallel. Sounds like the Rambam. There is no Metzias of Hallel on this day, right? That's what it sounds like. Lo tikno Hallel b'Purim, right? So he said, there's the ever-present Takar Zavim Kishul Nigon Osa Gulasan. It sounds from the Rambam that chi of Hallel was only the first time it happens. I will bring a ride if the Rambam is Neita to those who would say the takana of the Nevi'im to say Hallel at the time of the Kishinig, almost al Gulasan, and not forever, just that year. Almost al Gulasan. I think the Rambam understood that that's the pshat. It's not an ever-present takana. It's almost al Gulasan in that year. And then that should keep on going afterwards. That's a takana of a later door, right? Which taka happened by Purim, like we keep on referencing the Ramban of how the Chag of Purim evolved. The first Ramban in Maseches Megillah. The most literal reading of the Rambam is that there is no Hallel whatsoever. It's Megillah or nothing. Here is what I think, right? Kriyas Megillah hiya Hallel, right? The Takanas Nevi'im, the Kishnigon Mosal Gulasan is just at B'shas Hanes, B'shas Hagula, and not L'Doros, not forever after. I think that's what it sounds like. From this Rambam, I say it's what it sounds like. Lo tikno Hallel b'Purim is that there is no Hallel. So what it sounds like, so it means the Takanas Nevi'im, every time you're Nigal, you say Shira, just that year, not L'Netzach. Just at that year, at that place, at that time. You know, that's what it sounds like. But actually, yeah, right, Lo Tikal Purim, there is no Hallow. Right, I Takasin, that's only the first year of Purim, let's say, right? But even then, or ever since Kriyas Megillah, after that Kriyas Megillah is the Hallow. So here's the thing: what I'm going to be mechadish, that first of all, sounds like Ron, there's no chi of Hallow whatsoever. You're not going to say Hallow. And I'm going to say you're not going to say Hallow according to anybody, not according to the Rambam, Koshkin, not according to the Rosh, that there is no chi of Hallow at all, because Akati Avdei Achashverosh, right? If I'm correct, in my memory serves me right, that the Rosh Paskins like Rava. Check me on that. But I would say from the Rambam that we're reading, you'll never read in connection Purim the Kapitla Halu Avdei Hashem. Never, ever, ever. Lo Tikal Purim. Kriyas Megillah Hiya Hallow. You didn't read Megillah, right? Find a Megillah. Find a Megillah. I mean find a Megillah. Find a Megillah means open the Chumash, because the Megillah is the Hallow. That's what Chazal wanted. They want to praise God by reading the Megillah. So I would say a very interesting thing, that since Kriyas Megillah is the Hallow, so first of all, you say there was no Megillah reading, there won't be any kosher Megillah reading this year. Once we say Hallow on the day you would have read Megillah. But don't say Hallow. Open up a Chumash and read the Megillah mitocha Chumash, or Baal Peh, Kral Peh. Midin Hallow. If you want to be machmir on the Rambam, then be machmir like everything the Rambam says. Kriyas Megillah Hiya Hallow. All right, so the Megillah is pasul. It's mostly erased. It's like whatever, we have the minimum halach, so much has to be written. A lot of it's missing to the point that everyone's mighty that it's pasul. Read from that Megillah, Midin Hallow, and read it when the Megillah should have been read. Right? And you have no Megillah, not even a Chumash, you don't know about Peh, so I want to do something. So I want to read the Kapitlach Tehillim of Hallow, which I don't think is correct, because they said Kriyas Megillah Hallow. So once you read those Kapitlach Tehillim, let's say, so you should read them on the day you would have read the Megillah. So there's no Megillah in Yerushalayim on a Purim Mishosh, no Chas v'Sholem. So when should I read Hallow? On Friday, not on Shabbos, right? If you have to resort to that because you don't even have a Chumash, and if you have a Chumash, don't say Hallow. Read the Megillah mitocha Chumash midin Hallow, because that's the takana. Lo tiknu Hallow b'Purim shekriyas Megillah Hallow. So two things we learn from just taking the Rambam most literally. If the Megillah is the Hallow. So it's definitely a toast that if you read the Megillah on Friday, that on Tes Vav, when you said Al Anisim, to say Hallow toast Gomor, the Rambam never meant for you to do that. A. B. Right? If there's no Megillah whatsoever, right? What should I do? You should say the text of the Megillah anyway. Mitoch HaChumash. When should you say it? And if you have no text of Chumash either, and I just want to do something, so you want to say the Kapitlach of Tehillim, you do it without a bracha. And that's for sure. You should do it without a bracha, vadai. Right? Because we're saying, lo tiknu Hallow b'Purim, be a bracha v'atah. Lo tiknu Hallow b'Purim. But when should you do it? Whether you're going to read the from the Chumash, the Megillah, or whether you don't even have that. So you're going to say the Kapitlach Tehillim, because I think if you have a Chumash, say the Megillah midin Hallow. When? On the day you would have read the Megillah. It should never happen, because there should always be a kosher Megillah, and you read the Megillah bismana. Okay, we will stop here for today.